it went out of the hunger map, meaning less than 3% of the population suffered some type of hunger by 2014. Well, by 2019, we were back.
Welcome back to our podcast, The Zero Hunger Project. I'm your host, Suman Roy,
And I'm Stacey and Neil.
and today we're going to continue the conversation from last week with no other than Dr. Cecilia Rocha from Policy to Plate Building Equitable Food System. You want to tell us a little about
I
Dr.
do. I'm
Rocha?
very excited that we're back speaking with Dr. Rocha again this week. She's a professor. She was a professor, actually. She just told us she retired. She was a professor at the School of Nutrition at Toronto Metropolitan University and a globally recognized scholar in the field of food policy, food security, and sustainable development. Over the last 2 decades, Cecilia's research has focused on how local food systems and participatory governance can be harnessed to combat hunger and promote social justice, particularly in urban settings. We've been talking about that a lot.
No.
Her work with the Belo Horizonte food security program in Brazil is fascinating and is frequently cited as a groundbreaking model of municipal governance that successfully integrated food access with economic and social development. This program's policies include regulating food prices, supporting local farmers, and creating food banks in popular restaurants, demonstrating that hunger is not inevitable. This is the thing that I think we need to put in on banners all over the place. Hunger is not inevitable, but a solvable issue through political will and coordinated action. Cecilia's ongoing research explores how food systems around the world can become more equitable, sustainable, and resilient, especially in the face of global crises like climate change, economic instability, and public health emergencies. She continues to advocate for community based food governance, where local voices and cultural food practices shape policies that impact access to nutritious food. She's a stone cold badass, is basically.
Cecilia, welcome back. Welcome back to
We're
this
so happy
conversation.
that you're back. I'm a newbie in all of this. I'm learning a lot from having these conversations with people. I mean, my background is in sociology and social justice, so I've talked about food security sort of uh, in an abstract way. I'm learning a lot speaking to people, and when I was listening to you talk about all of these programs and policies that are in place in Brazil, I was thinking Canada doesn't have that. Canada doesn't have that. Toronto doesn't have that. Canada doesn't have that. And I mean, so I have like 600 questions about that. First of all, how does it feel? How does it feel to see the disconnect between what is possible with what is actually happening in a city like Toronto, who
Or
economically,
Canada.
or in a country like
Yeah.
Canada, right, who is at a different economic level in different ways, ahead and behind Brazil. Um, and how do you stay motivated to keep doing this work? How has it changed over the decades? Like, I have 60 million questions to ask you, Cecilia. I just find this interesting. But how do you feel about Canada's performance in all of this, and what we have done and what we should be doing?
Well, I think that uh, looking at Brazil, one of the things that maybe can serve as inspiration. This is not that costly, first of all. A lot of people will look at this experience of Belo Horizonte, and I talked about that experience throughout the world, actually. And it's very interesting when people see how much it costs, all of those programs, and why it doesn't, it costs so much more. So first of all, it's this inspiration that it is possible because it's not that costly. If you have partnerships, if you have political goodwill, in a sense, the priority given to those. So things like that are very important. But the difference is in terms of when you compare Canada, or even when I talk to, for example, people in the United States or talk to people in Africa about this, there's a cultural difference. For example, I think that it's not as easy as it was in Brazil to bring up community initiatives into policy. There is a cultural reluctance in having government telling you what to do, let's say. For example, let me tell you, I have been proposing this for a long time, and Sonam and I participated in the Toronto Food Policy Strategy. It, yeah, and you know that Canada last year was the first time that Canada announced a national policy for school meals program.
I would like that repeated once again for the people at the back. 2024 was the first year in Canadian history that it was proposed that there be a national
School food program
school food
or
program.
policy. Well, and we were the last of the G7s.
Exactly. Yes. Now, there are some reasons for that, right? I mean, we are, we have the provinces quite independent in terms of schools, of education. So it's not, they don't have a national.
Yes, but Brazil has, it's, I'm assuming, some kind of state or provincial division inside of it.
But you see, this is the thing about, there's also difference, the cultural difference of accepting policy in terms of, for example, I find it very difficult for parents in Canada to accept the level of determination of the school meals program in Brazil. You cannot send food with your children to public schools in Brazil. You can work with the schools to have the food that you want, but you cannot say, no, my child will bring his or her own food.
This has to do with people getting in their own way in Canada, possibly in a way that they don't in other countries.
No, I'm not going to judge what is best or in terms of culture.
You can't, but I can.
No, I'm just saying that there are some cultural differences that have created some difficulties in implementing programs such as the ones that we have in Brazil. Even the popular restaurant, a restaurant that's open to everybody, that anybody can go. You know, people would, and that is questioning about that in Brazil as well. But it's just that in Brazil there are more people accepting it than I think you have in Canada. So there are some cultural differences that have created that. However, we do have now a national school food policy. And we do have now opportunity to create, things, work with the different cities, work with different communities to see how that policy will become reality in different jurisdictions. But yes, I think the Brazilian case suggests the possibilities.
So, Cecilia, as much as you're talking about the cultural difference and accepting policies, I get that 100%. But do you think political will is a big factor?
I think it is a big factor, but it's difficult to define what political will is. I think that in the advances that we had in Brazil, it happened when you had governments that really valued that, really valued food security, not only as a problem, but also as a priority for those governments. So, for example, in 2003, we had a government that came, national government that came to power and put that as a priority. We had tremendous progress. By 2014, Brazil was out of the hunger map, the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization hunger map. It went out of the hunger map, meaning less than 3% of the population suffer some type of hunger by 2014. Well, by 2019, we were back. Why? Because after 2016, there was another government in power. And in 2019, there was a terrible government in power that was there until 2022. There was a lot of retrocess. When you looked at the school meals program in Brazil in 2021, 2022, you don't see the great food school meals program that you have in Brazil, because that government did not give priority to that. Even if the governments could not abolish the programs, because they are in legislation, so that's very important. That's why I'm talking about institutionalize good things, because it's much more difficult for governments that come and don't think those are to get rid of them. But so when we had a period in Brazil that the governments did not give this priority, so we went back to the hunger map, but they could not abolish the programs completely. They just didn't fund it, they didn't pay attention to it. So now we have the government coming back, the same government that was in 2003, came back in 2023, 20 years later, and they're recovering those programs. So we are hoping that we will be out of the hunger map again this year or next, and they are recovering those programs again. So yes, it's never something that goes smoothly, but I think political will is what that means, is to make sure that this is important, and you provide the resources to it, to provide, you give the attention that those issues deserve.
And imagine the human toll. I mean, you go from one government one day to another government the next, and priorities change at the governmental level. But imagine what that's doing to all of those kids that are expecting food at lunchtime, and then all of a sudden they're not getting it. I mean, that's
And parents.
well, everybody. I just mean the recipients of these social programs are now, they've gone from being in the light to being in the dark, and that to me I find absolutely
And you're
heartbreaking.
pushing people into poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, they couldn't abolish the program, so they still needed to have the school food programs, right? So the difference is that, for example, the legislation in the school meals program is that you cannot have more than 20% of the food offered to the kids as ultra processed foods. So a maximum of 20%. And actually, this year went down to 15%, and next year is going to be down to 10%. This is under the legislation. But when a government's not paying attention to this, it goes up because it's cheaper, because it's easier, because so.
This answers Suman's question that he's been asking quite a bit about whether there should be a minister of food in this country, because that person could be responsible for
And that is exactly why,
institutionalizing
yeah, and that
it.
is where I come with the political will question. Is Brazil had a minister of zero hunger,
Yeah.
where the buck stopped.
Yeah.
And
You
we
should
don't
do
have
that, Suman. How do
I
we
know.
put you up for that job?
First, we need a political will.
Well, we've talked to Ambassador Bob Ray. Maybe he can help us.
Maybe
somehow.
he can help
He knows
us.
some people.
Maybe we can get to the prime minister and get the prime minister to help us.
Oh, yes, that would be great. It sounds like that's all we need is somebody in the decision-making level to just be
Absolutely.
open to the idea of all of these things.
Well, let me say that in Brazil, we never had a minister of food. And in the different cities in Brazil, we don't have a department for food security. However, what we did have was a Ministry of Social Development and Fighting Against Hunger. That was the name of the ministry. So it was within social development. And the only city in Brazil that has a separate department for food security is still Belo Horizonte.
Now, why is that?
Lots of reasons, but for the main, I would say, one of the main reasons is it's very difficult to change infrastructure in cities. Create a new department in which you're going to take funds from other different departments. It's not easy. It's not easy politically.
You can't complain that your kids aren't getting adequate food in schools and then not be willing to give up the money to create the programs to make sure they get fed.
True, but I think the point is, though we didn't have a minister of food in Brazil, but calling out the hunger,
Yeah.
eliminating hunger or zero hunger, that is the key part as a term of the ministry.
And,
that sets the priority.
institutionalizing these concepts. That's the
Exactly.
thing. We have to sort of, put them into law,
That's
codify
it.
them into law. and then they won't be able to take them back. It's the repealing of all of this that I just find heartbreaking. Fine, have a success, but then depending on the whim of whoever the prevailing, governing body is, they can decide whether or not it's a priority.
Yeah, that's the importance of the community mobilizing and lobbying and saying, "No, this is important. We don't want this to be eliminated." Whenever you have a government that is not paying attention to it,
So then, to that point, what can, say, a university do, for example? What role do they play in shaping food policy and doing those types of things? What work were you doing at TMU?
yeah. So I think universities can do a lot, and particularly in partnering with communities to report what they are doing, because I think communities are always, and especially civil society organizations, excuse me, they're always very busy doing whatever they do. They don't have the time to record a lot of what they do, and I think that universities can play that role in helping them recording, reporting what they do, how they do, and become a research. It becomes research in terms of documenting, analyzing, and systematizing all of those things that communities cannot do because they have other better things to do. So I think that's very important. And so I think universities can be this link between communities and policymaking, because we want policies that are what we call evidence-based. We want policies that they have a basis, they have seen data, they have seen reports. Uh, so I think universities can do this. This link can be this link. The educational structures that we have in universities and colleges could be this link between communities and policymaking, because they can collect evidence. You can have policies that are evidence-based.
Because now we know what to do, and now we just figured out the people that are going to do it. So now what do we do, Suman?
Now we go and get it
Okay, now
done.
we go and get it done. Okay, great.
We are
Cecilia,
challenging
what are you
our
doing in your
prime minister
retirement?
to come onto our podcast and have a conversation.
What are you doing in your retirement, Cecilia? Do you feel like,
I'm choosing what I do now. It's good. It's great. So
a pretty major opportunity for you to like? You feel like being the minister of food?
actually, I'm working on a book, on a collection of essays from Brazil, with Brazilians, my colleagues from Brazil. I'm also writing a paper with colleagues from Brazil, looking at the school food program in Brazil, how it compares with the principles that we have with the school food legislation in Canada, the project that was just launched now. And yes, and talking about what we have in Brazil, there's a lot going on in Brazil in this area, of course, because of all this history and the very interesting experiences that we have had. So if I can talk about it, if I can clarify things, I'm glad to do that.
That's
It's
amazing.
exciting.
Okay, your last question. Your favorite last
My
question.
favorite last question I always ask everybody when I interview them is, what is the question that people have forgotten to ask you, or that you wish people had asked you when you get interviewed to talk about these things?
Wow, that's a very difficult one, because
Like, is there a point that we're missing somewhere? Is there a key part of this process that you don't get to talk about as much? Is there something else?
no, you know what? I love to talk about this. I love to talk about the experiences of Brazil and the idea of food, of public food. The idea that there is a sense of this whole the food systems that we have, which is certainly it's revolve around private food, because most food is distributed through markets. But I think we need to think more about food as public food. Not that eliminating markets. So this is not never going to happen. And it's not useful actually to eliminate. But I think there is a sense of food being a public good, that we need to think more about it, and we need to um, reflect on what that means, why food is, in what context, and why food is a public good, and why what we need to do to make sure that this public good is there for everybody, is healthy, sustainable. That's my, and that's because I'm an economist, and my background is in economics, and this idea of food being public is very important in my sense of it.
Yeah, and that is exactly how you uphold food as a human right.
That's right.
Yeah, that's exactly. So it's not about having an economist or mindset, but that is what countries
Yeah,
like Canada, countries like Brazil has signed up for.
that's right. Exactly.
But anyways, thank you so much for your time. This was a great
It was
conversation.
wonderful. Thank you so much. I
We
find your
learned
work
a lot,
fascinating. Yeah.
and I made so many notes.
It's a great project. I didn't know about this project, Salman. I just looked at the website, and it's a great project. And anytime you want to invite me again, let me
We
know.
want to invite you again.
Yes,
We're just
and we
going
want
to
to
say
come and
now.
bug you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
There is so much to take on
Yeah.
this. A couple of things, the lessons, especially the three lessons
Mhm.
she talked about from the city that she worked in,
Mhm.
like that resonated so much. The importance of proper policy.
Mhm.
And as we say with Zero Hunger Project of Feed Scarborough, whoever, without proper policy, we will never end hunger.
Yeah.
And for her to mention that at the first lesson, then the principles to follow these policies, and then through the policies, don't forget the community
Mhm.
participation.
Mhm.
I think that is a key factor, and arguably, many might argue with me on this, but I am a strong believer. The reason SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are not doing as much as it should is because the community generally is not involved in the SDGs.
Yeah. And I mean, I can't really talk about this with any kind of authority apart from everything that I've been learning since we started doing this podcast. But to me, it feels like in Canada, at least, there's a massive disconnect between policy level decision making and community level grassroots initiatives. And there is no conduit for those two places to join each other.
No, and that is, I
See,
think, a huge
I've
problem.
solved the problem.
I see that, eh?
You just needed to invite me.
No, but that is the issue.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm going to go back to the SDGs because that bothers me
Yeah.
quite a bit. When we go into the communities and talk about SDGs, people don't even know what that means.
No.
They have no idea. But you cannot have a successful policy or a successful program without the community being a big part of it.
And
Be
yes.
implemented.
Yes, period. Full stop. Additionally, is there a national food policy in this country, Suman?
We do. We will. No, we will talk about that in another episode.
No, but what I'm saying is
It
that
is.
right?
Is it doing the job? I don't know.
Mm.
I don't see it active. I don't see our national food policy team really going miles.
Right.
However, let me be very clear in this. I am watching it from outside.
Yeah.
I am not a part of the National Food Policy Council.
Yeah.
But in our future podcast, we will have somebody from the National Food Policy Council who can give us a little more ideas. We talked to Dr. LeBlanc, who is a
Mhm.
part of the National Council,
Mm-hmm.
and he was disappointed. He made
Mhm.
it very clear, loud and clear, that he was disappointed the way it is not working.
Right.
So I'm waiting to hear from some other folks who's going to be on the podcast down the road
Mm-hmm.
to see what's happening there. But I think either way, the community involvement, even with a food policy, national food policy, it is not the community.
No,
It
but
needs
there's
to come
nobody.
down.
There's nobody. There's no go between up here and down
No,
here.
it is not. And even those policy councils are not empowered enough.
Right.
So even if they were very active,
Yeah.
they're still not empowered enough. And we saw that in the city of Toronto.
Right.
We had a city food policy council.
Mm-hmm.
It was fantastic. We had really smart people in it.
Mm-hmm.
And but we did not have the power to really move the needle and make a
And
difference.
then what happened to it?
It's shut down.
Mm-hmm.
It's shut down for other reasons, not generally because it was dormant. It wasn't dormant. It was very active,
Mm-hmm.
but active within our own circle, but actually not giving our feedback or giving our expertise to the powers that can actually be enacted.
Okay, so here's a point that I think is crucial when we're talking about all of these things. We've been talking about what can one person do to kind of change the face of hunger in Toronto and what have you. I think part of the problem is that we don't have infrastructure in place and we don't know enough to demand to have that happen.
No, and when we talk about community empowerment, it's just words.
Yeah.
It is, we do not, especially I'm going to say this in North America, in Canada, we do not really empower our communities. We don't.
No,
We
I mean
use the word.
everybody seems to be fumbling around on their own doing their best and there's nothing to kind of sew it all
Yeah.
together. And I guess using your voice and using your pocketbook, these things are important, but there's no infrastructure to support and protect these community programs, let alone create a network. I mean,
Exactly.
we really need to sort of get going from the ground up, and I think part of it is that we need to start demanding from our politicians
Absolutely.
that there be kind of infrastructure in place to support this type of social justice. I mean, social justice work. It's
It's huge.
humanitarian work.
Yeah. But but I'm going to put it out here, and I've said a few times in different episodes, and even this episode we talked about it. We need a minister of food,
Hmm.
or we need a minister of something that Dr. Rocha talked about, something that calls out ending hunger right in the ministry's name.
Yeah.
Unless we do that, we are never going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Our food security sitting in Minister of Agriculture's portfolio
Right.
does not do the job.
So where should it be? Public health?
No, it shouldn't be public health either.
It should be its own thing.
It should be its own thing.
Yep, fair enough.
Who works with every other ministries, including public health, including social development, all of this, because it is a unique item, the food. It helps everywhere, and there is nobody who's accountable.
You want to go into politics, Suman?
I've dabbled there, but the reality is we need action now.
Yeah.
We cannot wait. In Canada, in a country like Canada, 10 million people are food insecure. That's 1/4, 25% of our community does not have enough food to eat. And we can't wait for at some point somebody will do something about it. We need now. We need
100%.
action today.
Yeah.
And I think this is an open challenge. We have a new government in Canada, and to say that can we have food security, take it a little more seriously.
Yeah.
And no offense to the Minister of Agriculture, they are amazing. The team is great,
Mm-hmm.
but that is just one part of food insecurity. I want to
Mhm.
make that clear. It's not about the ministry at all. The ministry is amazing,
Yeah, yeah.
but agriculture is one part of food insecurity in Canada.
Right.
There is a lot of other
It
parts.
deserves its own
Exactly, and the
agency,
buck
department.
needs to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
And that is what. Anyways, we talked a lot. Thank you so much for listening and
Thanks for
being a part
joining
of this conversation.
Mhm.
If you like it, please subscribe to the Zero Hunger Project. Please give us your feedback, your comment, questions. And if you want to know more, please pick up a book, The Zero Hunger Project. It's available in any of your platforms. And know more about hunger in the world
Mhm.
and solutions. And some failure stories are there too, just to learn from them. But subscribe, follow. See you next week.